We're an elite, highly skilled group of embedded agents. They only call us when everything else has failed. We have no rules. We have no limits. Our job is to protect what remains.
We are your co-workers. We are your neighbors. We might even be your friends.
But when we get the call,
We leave everything behind.
we are.
The Division.
Open world games as of 2016 have been a little hit and miss. Developers are constantly pushing the boundaries of visual yumminess when it comes to vibrant, breathing cities that allow the player to call a home away from home. But at the same time, they forget that you can only live in a world when you feel compelled to. Tom Clancy's The Division marks a new turn in Ubisoft's attempt at dominating the free roam market. It already has Assassin's Creed, Far Cry and Watch Dogs under its belt, so another one to the pile wouldn't hurt, right? The question though is, does The Division offer something deserving of our time, especially with so many games like it on store shelves already?
Shane, don't! Ah! I'm gonna kill you!
The Division starts out with you, a sleeper agent, being activated amongst the bustling city of New York. A global pandemic has wiped out 90% of the Earth's population, but you, like many other agents called into the city, seem to be immune to the deadly pathogen. And there the fight for conquest begins, and it's up to you along with thousands of other players to take back the city from gangs, rival military, and maybe, just maybe, rogue agents as well. The story, I have to admit, has a very interesting premise. The initial opening set piece of a city now abandoned, caretakered by the remnants of the city itself, and fought over by a broken agency and lawless thugs, is quite the narrative hook, especially with the world-ending virus always sitting in the backdrops throughout your adventure. In a way, it sports many potential branching paths and twists that could take it anywhere, and it constantly makes you wonder when the story is going to truly kick in. But sadly, it never does. Throughout The Division, you play as a silent, very unimportant protagonist, moulded in the street vat of a car window and sent out to do the bidding of a bunch of rude, unrelatable allies of many professions. The game pushes you to take up home base within a part of the city, and then grow its community with upgrades and denizens that can contribute to your restart of the lost metropolis. The problem truly is that The Division goes nowhere in your 25+ hour adventure. It has no carrot on the end of the stick, because really you are constantly making your own in hopes that it turns around and surprises you, but right until the end you are left with nothing. No character development, no plot progression at all, apart from empty promises given by scattered pieces of lore of what could be in this game's future.
Yeah, it's Rick. Hello? Who's there?
You like that, huh? Having someone call you at 4 o'clock in the morning?
For the most part, your core journey is travelling from safe house to safe house and taking on missions of different resource importance for your base and upgrades. Within them is a rather lazy tale with little to no inspiration to take you anywhere as you fight to defeat incredibly forgettable faction leaders who don't even feel like they are part of the story in the first place, and of course, discovering the origins and potential cure of the outbreak itself. The main plate in this city-wide buffet is mostly its cover-to-cover combat, loot hunting and PvP side distraction. Like Borderlands before it, you'll be constantly fighting wave after wave of copy and paste enemies in hopes that golden nuggets of guns, clothing and armor will be dropped in splashes of green, blue, purple and gold light. Each of these pieces of gear build your character, which by the way is staggeringly huge in terms of outfitting choices, along with stats and personal role preferences, be it in a team or simply solo. The scaling customization means that no player will usually look the same as you, and it helps build that personal identity when interacting with others around the city. The thing about The Division though, is that it's one of the few games that really promotes the cooperative side of gaming. You want to play in a team because the challenge is presented there, and it's actually quite balanced in a way that even squadding up with randoms can be fun and rewarding. The lone wandering does give you a sense of what this game's world is trying to make you feel, but it's the co-op that will always bring you back for more, especially when it comes to sharing the city's sites of abandon. The roles you do play within a team vary based on the skills you unlock as you level up and upgrade your base of operations. This comes in 3 separate ability trees that provide medical, damage and resistant buffs, tactics and gadgets that help make fights a little easier depending on the missions that you take on. Slowly recharging medical injectors are a popular choice for lonely players, but other tools come along to make things more interesting, such as a cute AI bouncy ball mine, deployable shields, elemental turrets, sticky grenades, and plenty more. There is a plethora in selection for how you want your Division experience to play out, and that's not including the equipable perks that benefit team and solo play as well. Guns play an unusual fixated role during your time in New York too. One thing to note is that this game is based on realism. That means realistic guns for kind of realistic times, so don't expect anything bursting with imagination when it comes to the smorgasbord of assault rifles, shotguns, machine guns, and sniper rifles. You'll never be focused on one gun either, because just as you level up, so does the loot that you find. I was constantly changing up between all the different types of weapons, and eventually as the endgame gets closer, you'll have all those go-to guns for any situation that rises, along with tons of modding opportunities to make that one dealer of stat-based death the crown jewel of your collection. When it comes to the stats in the Division, it's the kind of game you wouldn't expect to have them. Pumping rounds upon rounds into enemies exchanges fixed values off the enemy health like in an RPG, and so this weird mix of addictive level grinding and immersion-breaking combat kind of appears. The character leveling and loot collecting is very cool in keeping you interested, believe me, but it also brings problems that shooting enemies sometimes feels like you are shooting at nothing more than brick walls, when clip upon clip is emptied into standard hooligans that seem to have little to no body armor, and at times it makes you feel, well, feeble and underpowered. Enemies themselves come in a very small variety depending on the pack, but all look the same throughout, even down to animations. Baseball bat wielding thugs charge at you with little care for their own safety, and slowly as you progress you come across a few more like heavy gunners, snipers, medics, and an engineer that drops the occasional turret, but there could still have been more. Bosses come in the form of named adversaries that look just like standard goons but are even more spongy, I guess. They of course drop more loot, but they play and react just like any other enemy, and the only spark in individuality is their single-worded name above their head.
He's about to die. There you go.
Rarely, and I really mean rarely, you will come across a rogue Division AI to do battle with, but again it's just a grumble in the usual affair. They move cover to cover and take hundreds upon hundreds of rounds, making fights more a battle of endurance than epic proportions. Thankfully the gunplay is really good though, and incredibly tight with weapon sound effects bursting with oomph that helps your number-spitting toys feel less like pea shooters like I previously complained about. Something always accessible and clearly targeted as your endgame is the incredibly overshadowing Dark Zone, centered right in the middle of the city map. This large chunk of walled-off environment is developed for not only high-level loot grinding, but also competitive multiplayer and co-op, with its own little twist. See, as we know throughout the Division, you can play as a team, but while in the Dark Zone, that team can also be your own killable workhorse. That is because player killing is actually one half of the activity. In one instance, you could come across a group of assumed friends, only for them to disband the group and put a bullet in the back of your head, taking all those treasures you spent hours collecting. The funny thing is that it's never actually a bad thing. That is the experience you're going in for, and it works remarkably well, especially so even for solo players as you hide behind walls and cars from groups of wandering players looking for fortune. If you do happen to kill a player, then things aren't as simple as you might think. This, my friends, puts you into rogue status, a state of effect that pinpoints everyone to your location for a big fat reward if they kill you, unless you can survive the timer and get out of dodge with your player killed presence. It is tense and exciting, and so enjoyable through its trial and error, because loot is actually quite plentiful, and so either playing good or bad, alone or together, is quite fine for any walk of life you choose during the product.
What do you want? Come on. Shoot me.
Visually like many an Ubisoft game, you'll find that The Division looks a little different compared to what was initially promised at its E3 unveiling. That isn't saying that it's an ugly game though. The PC version sports very sharp aesthetics with fabric, shadows and character models looking pretty fantastic for its art style. The draw distance is also great along with weather effects like snow and fog, adding a real sense of dread when wandering the streets with limited vision. The day and night cycle promotes detail that shows the developers put real love into the city itself too. The lights strung around trees glow in the darkness, and neon goes well with the festive time of year. There is so much to see when it comes to the world that you wonder, and as mentioned, the character customization provides not only a surrounding decor, but also a personal one too. Bugs were spotted and AI blunders did happen at a rare disturbance, but this is a polished and solid game for what it provides. It might be a little light and repetitive on the content, especially in what you can do, but the Dark Zone truly makes up for this with the community itself becoming your team as well as your boss character. I'm giving The Division a nicely balanced silver muffin, but what do you think to The Division? Proxy would love to know, but until next time, ciao.